motion? Like, do you support it? And going forward, what do you think needs to happen for it to eventually get installed again?
Yeah, so there's a prioritisation ballot in the Green Party, so every member votes based on prioritisation. So the process is you kind of vote on the motions that go through it. I'd said yes to the Together Alliance, and then the spring conference was announced. So you've got to make a choice, right? You've got to decide what you want to do. In terms of what happens next, I want to see what motion comes forward. So I was very public that I thought there was problems with the motion, unamended. So there are amendments that I think it needed to happen. I think, if we're talking about what's happening in Palestine right now, it's clearly a genocide. That is clearly racist. Like, genocide is above racism, right? If we talk about the Nakba, that's clearly racist, right? I think there's a conversation to be had about Zionism pre-Theodore Herzl, where there were Zionist Jews who didn't want to displace the Palestinians, but wanted to have a conversation about that. Now, you could say that's niche and nuanced, and it is niche and nuanced, but that's because words are niche and nuanced. So I don't think the helpful conversation right now is to have a history lesson or talk about what's happened in the past. I think the helpful conversation is to say, how do we stop the genocide that's happening in Palestine right now? How do we make sure that we campaign and speak for a free Palestine, that it's ultimately an equal state where Israelis and Palestinians can have equal diplomatic rights? And I don't think it should be up to British politicians to decide what that looks like. So that's all very complicated, and that's why motions for conference, I don't think, are necessarily the right way to do this. People are perfectly entitled to do that, where it's a democracy, and I'm pleased that members are using their right to do that. But, there is nuance and complexity to it. I hope that the motion that goes to the next conference will have more of that nuance and complexity.
So do you think the current motion that was on Saturday, you would have voted for it because of these amendments that you feel need to be made?
Well, it depends what amendments would have been placed on it. So I think there were like 18 amendments. There were amendments that I think would have made the motion palatable. I think there's amendments that wouldn't have made the motion palatable. So it's very difficult to say would you vote for this or not until you've heard the debate and you see what motions go through or not. That's the point of an amended motion. Now, that's very difficult to get across on social media because people understand they want a straight yes or no answer. It's more complex than that. We're talking about like a whole history and a whole thing about definitions. Again, I think the helpful and important conversation is how do we oppose Israel's genocide?
So do you think it would be an idea, because I know following on the conference, like, I'm a key supporter of yours as well, right? But just thinking of it from a optic point of view is to basically make out where you stand on this, because I think there's confusion that you added together, like this was a rare because this motion took place, which is also really important. So like I said, really hard to balance the two. You already commit to one, that where your position is at the moment, because I feel like even members within the Green Party that are really supportive of you are kind of stuck that we had such an amazing weekend, but the motion doesn't
Okay. What I'd say is I've done lots of interviews where I've laid out my position over and over again, which is that I think the motion is not particularly helpful. I think we need to oppose the genocide. If we're talking about Zionism being what's going on right now and the Netanyahu's government, then yes, that's clearly genocide. If we're talking about the displacement of Palestinians, yes, clearly genocide. If we're talking about pre-Theodore Herzl, I think it's a more nuanced conversation. Again, I don't think that conversation helps anyone when people are being killed in Palestine. Let's stop that. So, No, I appreciate you asking the question. There's a genocide going on in Gaza that our government are actively enabling in terms of the selling of arms and intelligence, as I just said. And I think it's incumbent on anyone who wants to make sure that morality or ethics is at the heart of their politics to question that, to call it out, and to say that a member of parliament would have voted differently and will hold the government to account on that.
But a vote in Gorton is not going to change a policy towards Israel. It just isn't. I mean, there's not a line between the two.
Having a new MP, well, I think that's the whole point of politics, is when there's a democratic vote and the Labour government see that they're losing seats to the Green Party. I said when I ran for leader that I wanted Keir Starmer to be more worried about the Green Party than he is about reform. I think that's already happening. But I think the Green Party winning on Thursday will send a very clear message to this government that people are sick and tired of a Prime Minister who promised change, but actually there hasn't been a lot of change. And where there has been change, it's arguably been even worse, whether it's with the Peter Mandelson affair, whether it's around Palantir and the questionable contracts with Wes treating the health secretary and our NHS data that's being sold to a US tech spy company, Palantir, or whether it's on a whole range of issues. The change that Keir Starmer promised hasn't delivered. And I think that's why we're seeing people, or I hope that we will see people vote Green in numbers that we've never seen before.
There's a motion to be debated at your party conference next month with the title Zionism is Racism. Do you support that?
So, to be clear, we were an entirely democratic party, so any member can put forward any policy at any time, and there's now over 195,000 members. So there's lots of policies going to this party
including
conference.
That one.
including that one, and I'll be listening carefully to the debate that happens. I think more widely, I think I don't think it's particularly helpful to have an argument or a debate about labels. What I think is helpful and important is exactly what I've spoken to in this interview, which is there's an ongoing genocide going on.
I understand that part, but the motion says Zionism is racism. It's a fact. It's a factual statement. It's an avowal of an opinion, at least. Zionism is racism. I'm interested to know whether you accept it or not.
Well, as I've said, there's lots of policies going to our party conference that'll be debated, and that debate will happen. But on the issue more widely, I think it depends how you define the label, which I've been clear about in several interviews.
So what you're saying is that, so I'm just trying to work out, because it's a very specific question. In your view, is Zionism equivalent to racism?
Well, I'm giving you a very specific answer, which is it depends on your definition of Zionism. I can give you some different definitions of Zionism, and we can talk about whether they're racist or not. If we're talking about the definition that this Israeli government are clearly perpetrating through a genocide in Gaza, then yes, absolutely, that's racist.
Would pro-Israeli people who believe in the right of Israel to exist, actively pro-Israeli people, would they be welcome in the Green Party?
I think people are welcome in the Green Party with a whole host of beliefs and ideas.
What about that one specifically, Zack Polanski? I'm interested in that. Would pro-Israeli people be welcome in your party?
Would someone who is pro-Israeli be welcome in the Green Party?
Yeah.
Yes, if they were calling out the genocide in Gaza. If they were pro the genocide in Gaza, then no, genocidal beliefs aren't compatible with being a member of the Green Party.
But the right of Israel to exist, the right for it to subsist as an independent nation, which is one definition of Zionism, interestingly enough, that is something that you could be compatible with.
Well, the conversation we need to have is the rights of Israeli people to exist and the rights of Palestinian people to exist. States aren't people, states are ideas. And as we see with the UK, there's been referendums on independence for Scotland. There's a conversation about it in Wales. And so I think it's quite an esoteric conversation to talk about the rights of states to exist. What I think we need is equality for all people, which is not esoteric.
I don't think many Israelis would say it's an esoteric question about whether their state should exist in a part of the world where many people want to eliminate it. I think it's not an esoteric question. It's an existential question. They think they have a right to exist, and therefore it's a fundamental. They want to see leaders, particularly more popular leaders as time progresses, supporting their right to exist.
Well, what I'm interested in is making sure that Israeli people and Palestinian people have equality and human rights for all, and that people have the right to live, to have self-determination and sovereignty. And I think it's important, as the leader of a UK political party, that I'm really clear in that that's not my decision, that's not the Green Party's decision, or even the UK government's decision. We've seen the mess was caused in the first place by excessive foreign interference in terms of deciding what the exact outlook should be like. It should be any political leader's responsibility to say, actually, all human life should be considered equal. That's about our humanity and our dignity. And actually, our role in this is to make sure that there's a peaceful and diplomatic way of ensuring there's a peace process.
And I'll move on this, but just to be clear, you are considering, you might well vote for the motion Zionism is racism. You're not ruling that out.
I'll wait to hear the debate, but absolutely, if the definition of Zionism is what is happening right now by the Israeli government, then yes, absolutely, that's racist, and I'll vote for it.